Have you ever caught him looking at you when he thinks you aren't watching? Not the kind of glance that scans a room, but the kind that stills the air, as if in that moment, his eyes are trying to remember something his mind hasn't yet named. You've felt it. In the quiet shift of his voice when he says your name. In the way he becomes careful, not performative. Just careful, like he's handling something that matters. And then, just as quickly, he retreats. The moment folds into silence. He acts like nothing happened, but something did. You felt it. And now you're left wondering, was that real? Or did I imagine it? Let me tell you the truth. It was real, and no, you didn't imagine it. What you saw, what you felt, was the soul speaking before the man had time to catch up. Because love, real love, rarely begins in the conscious mind. It begins in the body, in breath, in a shift so quiet only the intuitive can hear it. He's more in love with you than he knows. And his silence? That's not distance. That's depth. Learning how to speak. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." But love, the kind that alters timelines, the kind that doesn't ask permission, begins where consciousness ends. You see, a man doesn't fall in love the way the world tells you he does. Not with logic, not with lists, not even with the words he speaks. He falls through presence, through memory, through a quiet unfolding he doesn't yet understand. And often, long before he knows it, his soul has already chosen. That's why his signals feel confusing. Because what you're sensing isn't his plan. It's his process. Something sacred is stirring underneath his awareness. And you feel it before he does. Because the feminine always feels first. A man in the early stages of unconscious love won't tell you he's falling. He won't confess it in perfect sentences or curated messages. He'll betray it in moments. A pause too long, a question he didn't need to ask, a softness he didn't mean to show. That's not performance. That's resonance. What's happening in those moments is projection. Jung's term for the way we see our inner truths on the outside world, without knowing it. When a man begins to fall for you beneath the surface, your presence activates something he's carried for a lifetime. A symbol, an echo, an emotional imprint he couldn't name until you walked into the room. Suddenly, he sees something in you that feels ancient, familiar, necessary. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are, to him. And still, he doesn't know. Not yet. You'll notice it in how he tries to stay neutral, even as his body leans in. You'll hear it in the space between his words, the carefulness, the restraint, the breath he holds when you speak your truth. He may even seem quieter with you than with anyone else. That's not disinterest, that's reverence. It's the unconscious recognizing something sacred. And here's the paradox. The deeper he feels, the less he understands why. Because the mind is slow, it builds safety through explanation. But the soul doesn't wait, it moves without permission. And when that soul recognition hits, it begins to shape his behavior before his thoughts can organize it. This is why you feel both pulled in and pushed out. Why he comes close, then turns away. Why some part of you knows you matter to him, even while his words remain cautious, even absent. He's not playing a game. He's undergoing a transformation. It doesn't look dramatic on the surface. He's not writing poetry or declaring destiny. But inside, his emotional architecture is shifting, and your presence is the catalyst. Jung believed that we are all drawn toward wholeness, that every man carries a deep unconscious image of the feminine, the anima, which he searches for, often unknowingly. When he meets a woman who mirrors that internal image, it's not just attraction. It's a collision, a remembering, a psychic awakening. And that's why he seems unsettled. Because what you awaken in him isn't casual. It doesn't fit in the box of type or timing. You've touched something foundational. And that kind of touch doesn't ask for attention. It demands reorientation. He starts to see himself differently around you. Maybe he notices how he becomes more tender, more patient, more real. Or maybe he notices that he can't stay detached the way he used to. You've entered the symbolic realm, the one that speaks in energy, not logic. And everything in him that once felt so sure now begins to shift. But he won't tell you that. Not right away. Because he doesn't yet know what's happening. And that's where your gift comes in. The quiet knowing you carry. The part of you that senses what's true even before it's spoken. That intuitive pull that whispers, this man is feeling more than he can admit. Trust it. You've been taught to doubt that inner knowing, to wait for clarity, for confirmation, for words that validate what your heart already knows. But in the language of the soul, recognition always comes before words. You've already seen the signs. You've noticed the shift in how he speaks to you, the weight his voice carries when he's addressing you, even in simple conversation. You've caught the way he tracks your energy, even in silence, how he shows up when it matters though he doesn't know why, how he seems to orbit your presence without a plan. These are not strategies. These are soul responses. They are not rehearsed. They are not conscious. They are true. And here's what most never tell you. The unconscious will always reveal itself through behavior before belief. A man might say he's unsure, not ready, indifferent, but his body, his timing, his attention will betray something deeper, because love doesn't ask for permission to begin. It starts in the in-between. The dream, the symbol, the resonance between two energies that remember each other from before they ever met. That's the part of love Jung understood. That the deepest relationships are not chosen, they're recognized. And what you are seeing now, what you are feeling, is recognition unfolding before language. So if you're wondering why his words don't match his eyes, why his timing feels both perfect and impossible, why you leave every interaction with more questions but a deeper certainty underneath, it's because his mind hasn't caught up to what his soul already knows. He is more in love with you than he understands. And the ache you feel in the waiting, that isn't weakness. That's your intuition tuning into the truth beneath his silence. He doesn't need to say it for it to be real. The soul always speaks first. The body follows, and the mind takes its time. But make no mistake, if you feel it, it's already begun. Watch how he begins to notice what others miss. Not the loud things, not the obvious, but the quiet shifts in you, the subtle change in your tone when you say, "I'm fine." But you're not. The way your eyes soften when something touches your heart, the slight tremor in your voice when you're holding something in. He catches it, he may not speak on it. He may pretend not to notice. But deep inside, something stirs, and once stirred, it does not go back to sleep. This is not interest. This is imprinting. When a man's unconscious begins to love, it moves toward you with instinct, like a tuning fork that's found its match. He starts to remember you, even in your absence. He doesn't understand why you appear in his thoughts in moments that have nothing to do with you. But there you are, lingering between tasks, entering dreams, tied to songs, scents, and quiet spaces. This is projection, not fantasy, but soul memory. Jung taught that we see our own unlived truth in others, that what we are missing, or seeking, or longing to reclaim, gets placed upon the people who awaken it. And when he sees you, it's not just you, it's the forgotten part of himself rising to the surface. That's why his energy shifts when you walk into the room. He might not move toward you, but something in him pulls. His breath catches, his posture changes. He grounds himself without realizing, or he fidgets, or he stares into nothing for a second too long. Presence exposes the unconscious. Always. You might think he's not paying attention, but silence doesn't mean absence. There are men whose words are loud and gestures are grand, but they leave no imprint. Then there are men like him, whose silence says everything. You feel his energy in the room. You feel it when he's near, and you feel it even more when he's not. That's the first sign. The second, his attention bends. He remembers things you didn't expect him to. That book you once mentioned in passing, the way you take your coffee, that story you told him about your childhood. He recalls it not because he wrote it down, but because it registered. Deeply, emotionally, imprinted into the part of him that wasn't trying to remember, only to feel. Love writes itself into the nervous system before it makes sense in the mind. You'll notice the way he shows up, not always with clarity, but with instinct. He'll text when something's off with you without knowing why. He'll ask a question you haven't voiced. He'll appear in small ways, not to impress, but because something inside him needs to. He may say it's casual, accidental, just thought of you, but those moments are not random. They are echoes of emotional resonance. He may get quieter around you, or clumsier, or strangely self-aware. That's because your presence disarms the part of him that knows how to perform. And what's left, what rises up, is the unguarded man, the boy, the soul. You didn't pull this version out of him, you activated it. without effort, without strategy. And that's what makes it real. Pay close attention to the way he responds to your emotions. When you're joyful, his face softens, his voice lifts. But when you're not okay, when something's off, even if he doesn't have the words, you'll feel his energy shift. He may go quiet, he may hover, he may offer something simple, a small gesture, a silent presence, because he doesn't know what to say, only that he wants to say something. This is protection. Not the kind that postures, but the kind that emerges from instinct. Jung said what the soul loves, it protects. Not out of obligation, not to prove anything, but because in some hidden chamber of his being, you are already part of him. And when you are not well, his balance is off. He can't explain that, but he feels it. He becomes present in invisible ways. He checks if you made it home. Even if he doesn't say why he's asking, he notices when you've withdrawn, even when you're pretending to be okay. He might offer help where you didn't ask for it. Not to take control, but because some part of him has already assigned your safety to his own emotional responsibility. You've entered his internal landscape. He's adjusting to your presence inside his psyche. Now watch what happens when others speak about you in front of him. That's where the unconscious can't hide. If someone praises you, look at his eyes. They'll soften, maybe even light up. If someone criticizes you, notice how his jaw tightens, how his body tenses, how he suddenly becomes still. He might not say anything. He might even pretend to laugh along. But that internal shift is real. Love that has not reached language still moves the body. Instinct defends what the ego hasn't admitted. There is no rehearsal in those reactions, only truth. And here is one of the most overlooked signs. He starts to change, even when you're not around. His patterns shift, his rhythm alters. The way he speaks to others, the way he holds space for emotion begins to transform. Something inside him is rearranging. Not because you're demanding it, not because he's trying to win you, but because love, once activated, quietly reorders priorities. You'll sense this in how he begins to reveal things he never used to share. Maybe not all at once, maybe not in perfect sentences, but little by little he shows you more. The hidden parts, the shame, the fear, the regret. He stops needing to be impressive. He starts becoming real. That's not game, that's surrender. He may speak of dreams he's never said aloud, hopes that scare him, failures that shaped him. When a man lets you see his inner world, not the curated one, but the raw, unguarded one, it means something in him feels safe enough to be seen. And this is not conscious strategy, this is soul permission. You become the mirror through which he can finally look at himself without flinching. This is the feminine presence, not soft in performance, but soft in truth. You don't force him open. You simply are. And that beingness, that anchored energy, gives him the courage to meet himself. He might not understand why you matter so much, why he compares every woman to you, even when he doesn't want to, why your absence echoes louder than some people's closeness. But he feels it, and every time he feels it, something within him leans closer, even when his mind pulls away. This is not confusion. This is initiation. And the reason it feels so intense is because you've stepped into the realm of the symbolic. You've moved beyond attraction, beyond chemistry, beyond physicality. You've become a figure inside his psyche, an emotional archetype. And when that happens, nothing stays the same, because he can't unknow you. You're there, now, in the back of his thoughts when he's working, in the songs that suddenly mean more, in the questions he didn't ask before. You've taken residence in the part of him where logic doesn't rule, where truth lives, unspoken. And if you pay attention to the silence, to the slips, to the energy that thickens around him, you will see it. He is more in love with you than he knows. Not because he says it, not because he shows it in ways the world has taught you to recognize, but because something in him is already rearranging itself around your presence. That's the truth you've felt all along. And now, you can finally name it. You don't need to chase this. You don't need to decode his every movement or mold yourself into the shape you think he wants. That's not how the feminine draws love. That's not how truth recognizes itself. You don't earn this kind of connection. You are it. There's a gravity you carry, not in what you say, but in how you feel. And that gravity moves through his unconscious like a current. Quiet, constant, unstoppable. The more you rest in your own truth, the truth of your presence, your heart, your knowing, the more clearly he sees you. Not with his eyes, but with his soul. That's the gaze that matters. The one that lingers long after he's looked away. The one that remembers you in silence. The one that shapes his choices, even when he doesn't understand why. There's no need to rush what is already unfolding. The masculine often moves slower than the feminine. Not because he doesn't feel, but because what he feels challenges everything he thought he knew. And when a woman arrives who mirrors the depths he has yet to explore, something in him recoils. Not in rejection, but in reverence. You are not a task to complete, you are a presence to integrate, and that takes time. The feminine doesn't push. It doesn't prove, it knows. And when you live from that knowing, when you trust what you feel beneath the surface, you become unforgettable. Not because you've been loud, but because you've been real. Men don't forget the women who made them feel more honest. And if he's begun to change around you, if his silence has started speaking more clearly than his words, then he is already in motion. Not because you moved toward him, but because you anchored yourself deeply enough that he can't help but move toward you. Don't interrupt this with strategy. Don't dilute it with questions he isn't ready to answer. Instead, hold the space. That is the quiet power of the feminine, to allow his transformation to unfold without interference, to honor the rhythm of his becoming while remaining rooted in your own essence, to trust the pull without grasping, to witness without needing control, because your presence is already speaking to him. In the moments he reflects on his day and doesn't know why your name is there. In the way he hesitates before speaking, trying to match the depth of what he feels. In the subtle shifts, his patience, his protectiveness, his sudden stillness in your presence, you are being felt. And more than that, you are being recognized, not as an idea, but as a mirror, a key, a soul-level invitation to awaken something he's been carrying his whole life without knowing how to name. You see, in Jungian terms, the feminine is not just a lover. She is an archetype, a figure that unlocks integration. A man in the presence of real feminine truth is not just drawn, he is called back to himself, back to wholeness. And the beauty is, you don't have to do anything for this to happen, you only have to stay true. To stay connected to your own heart, to not betray what you already know, even when it isn't confirmed, even when it isn't clear. Because your body, your intuition, your emotional depth, they see what logic cannot. When he's slow to respond, when he's overwhelmed by your presence, when he can't give you the words you crave, but his energy stays near, his attention shifts, his inner world begins to change, even quietly. That's love. That's the unconscious choosing you. Not with fireworks, but with reverence. Let him take the journey in his own time. Let him come to the realization you already feel. You don't need to rescue him from it. You don't need to wait on the shore either. You simply need to be. Because your being is the lighthouse. And when he's ready to come home to himself, he'll follow that light. If he acts like something has changed, even though he doesn't know what, if his eyes linger a second too long, if he gets quiet around you, if he remembers things that matter to your heart but forgets everything else, it's because you've entered his inner world, quietly, symbolically, permanently. Not because you asked to be there, not because you tried to be, but because something in him recognized something in you, and the soul never forgets what it's recognized. You don't need to demand clarity. You don't need to ask, "Do you feel this?" Because the answer is already echoing through his behavior. In the way he shows up, in the way he struggles to name what he feels, in the way he cannot unsee you even when he tries to look away. The soul doesn't speak in declarations, it speaks in memory, in presence, in transformation. So if you feel him changing, if his world begins to tilt around you, if you see him slowly, unconsciously becoming the man he didn't know he could be, it's because he is already in love. And you already knew, because you felt it in the spaces between his words. You've seen it in the weight of his silence. You've carried the truth in your body long before his lips could form it. He's more in love with you than he knows. And now, you know how to see it.